Fire Emblem Engage largely strips back its social life for a fast-paced, action-heavy adventure. It's hard to tell if Fire Emblem Engage will please the most passionate fans or annoy them. The game, which serves as an anniversary special for the franchise, brings back protagonists from across the series and delivers nostalgia with both battles. But by gutting large parts of what made Fire Emblem Three Houses such a hit, it might feel like a bit of a missed opportunity for fans who wanted to spend some more time with old friends. While Fire Emblem Engage's combat kept us happily playing almost every side mission and skirmish throughout the game's lengthy campaign, the heart of the franchise, the characters, often feel like one-dimensional approximations of great RPG heroes. Add this to the sheer number of characters the game tries to deal with, and Fire Emblem Engage begins to feel very crowded. Playing as the Divine Dragon, a red and blue haired protagonist that can be either male or female, you awake decades after a battle which saw you fight alongside Marth, Ike, and other Fire Emblem favourites thanks to the Emblem Rings. These rings contain the spirit of those heroes and serve as a power-up during combat. Once awake, you meet a group of characters that have been watching over you while in your eternal sleep, and it's not long before they're forced to join you on your quest to reunite the Emblem Rings after they're stolen. Thus begins a gap year across the regions in order to get them all back before the power falls into the wrong hands. From a narrative perspective, the opening hours are frantic and jam-packed with exposition. Pacing is inconsistent as Fire Emblem Engage goes from introducing a new character with every new line of dialogue to simple tutorial fights that last way beyond the point where the intended lesson has firmly sank into the player. The unevenness is a problem throughout the first half of the game, where simple fights take longer than they need to and character development is sidelined in order to introduce even more new characters. The game's second half is much better about allowing characters room to breathe, but the narrative overall feels weaker than Three Houses, even if the combat itself is stronger. Combat missions in Fire Emblem Engage are essentially big games of chess. It's all about anticipating what the enemy will do and making sure that you either destroy that enemy or organise your units in such a way that means your weaker party members won't be destroyed. Should you choose to, you can play the game with a permadeath, meaning that if a unit is lost in battle, they can't be reselected. The character itself will remain in the game's hub area, but your opportunity to raise their bond level and unlock certain cutscenes and other benefits will be lost. While the missions themselves start off very simple, the final 5 or so chapters ramp up the difficulty significantly. This was a welcome change, but we'd have much preferred a steady rise. As in its current form, it feels like we went from a mission that we could have easily used the auto battle function for, to one that we had to micromanage. While the latter is preferable, especially if you enjoy the armchair general fantasy, we fear that the sudden shift in difficulty will take players by surprise and lead to armies being decimated. Away from the battlefield, Fire Emblem Engage's social links are a letdown. When compared to the stellar and widely adored relationship systems in Three Houses, Engage's off-the-pitch antics feel rushed and thin. While you can bond with these characters, this amounts to a very short cutscene in most cases, and little else. It makes the inclusion of the legacy characters feel like a bit of a waste. While some of the classic characters do get some development, particularly in the first half of the game, plenty of them feel like the voice actors were only available for half a day, leaving their appearances more like minor cameos. This also highlights the issue of how thin the new characters are. We would understand if the new characters felt like afterthoughts if the developers decided to go all in on the fan favourites, but in Fire Emblem Engage, neither faction gets much screen time or dialogue that they deserve. The coterie of pantomime villains do get more time to shine, but it's not nearly enough. The narrative is serviceable, but it's entirely predictable with twists and turns in the second half that are highly melodramatic, but they do fit the tone of the game. It's not a story you'll commit to memory, and from the outset the goal of collecting all the emblem rings doesn't vary significantly, leading to a very methodical structure of mission, new character, mission, new emblem ring, mission, repeat. While they do make the story almost incoherent at times, the sheer volume of characters means that you have lots of chess pieces at your disposal, which we really appreciated and added a lot to the combat. It feels like if the game had the social links of Fire Emblem Three Houses and the same great gameplay of Fire Emblem Engage, we would be talking about one of the very best games on the Nintendo Switch. But when the action is over in Fire Emblem Engage, we found ourselves with less and less reason to return to home base. Fire Emblem Engage's gameplay won't make up for the disappointing social elements for every player, but for strategy fans it's fast-paced, inventive and an enjoyable journey, even if it feels a bit hollow when you're not on the field. The real letdown to us was the use of the classic characters. most of which feel like hastily added cameos rather than the central focus that the plot seems to suggest they should be. The new cast, outside of the outlandish villains who entertain anytime they're on screen, feel underdeveloped, and the excellent costuming and inventive locations aren't quite used to their fullest potential. Fire Emblem Engage is a great strategy game, but it's not a great modern Fire Emblem game. We give Fire Emblem Engage 3 out of 5.